Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show hosted by a French professor who's going to be reviewing the album Languish Arts by Ka, also known as Brownsville Ka. Now, if you want to skip a little preamble, look in the description. I'm going to be talking a little bit about why did I choose this album as opposed to the other album that he released this week, and also I'll be talking about how you can get me to review the other album. So, why did I only review one? Well, first of all, I don't know how long this review is going to be, but you can look, I don't edit my videos, so I don't know. It's going to be a pretty long video. I take a lot of time. I really try to take this work seriously. And if he's releasing two albums, if he says they're two separate albums, I'm going to take him seriously, so I have to pick one. So, I put a little poll up on my community page in YouTube. First of all, most people just said that I should go back to some of his older work, including a YouTuber who I enjoy watching, Ro Ramden. So that was funny. It was hard to go against their recommendation. But, this is a new music review show. And ultimately, I settled on Languish Arts because I like the pun. Language arts, languish arts. I do teach languages. And right now, in the school system, languages are languishing. But also because he calls this his 9th album. The other reason that I didn't want to review both of them is that these albums are really hard to listen to. I don't mean that they're hard to enjoy. I mean, once you have the sound waves in your earballs, it sounds great. But they're hard to listen to if you want to listen to their music properly. So, let me tell you how I listen to the album Languish Arts by Ka. Now, first of all, does Ka release to Tidal? No. Does Ka release to YouTube? No. Does Ka release to Spotify anywhere? No. So already, the main way that I listen to music, which is through Tidal, is out. So I have to buy the music from Bandcamp? Okay, I've bought music from Bandcamp. That's not too hard. Nope, not on Bandcamp either. You have to buy music from his website, brownsvilleka.com, I believe is what it's called. So, it's $20, which is fine. Music is great. I love supporting artists, especially independent artists. But then once I buy it, I have WAV files. And do I look like a tech giant? Do I look like I know what I'm doing? Was I starring in the movie Hackers with Angelina Jolie? Was I in the background of that movie? You can look real hard. I'm not there. So I had to take the WAV files, and then in iMovie on my Mac, I had to make them into a movie, and then I had to export that movie onto my phone, and then I had to upload it to YouTube, to a private channel that no one can have access to. So I ended up listening to it by ripping it for myself. So I had to go through like 4 steps plus spend $20 just to listen to this music. So, how can you help me listen to the next thing? Make it worth it. If this video gets more than like 5,000 views, then I will have earned around $20. And that'll give me the money, and it will show there's enough interest in me reviewing Ka to review the other project as well. Okay, Woeful Studies. I want to, but make it worth all that effort. And I know there are places on YouTube where you can listen to illegal rips of the albums, but I'm not going to disrespect the man. He says that he wants you to buy his music like this. I will buy his music like that. I will go through all that effort to respect what the artist wishes. So, you can do that little donation button if you really want. I've never done that before. No one's ever given me money like that before. But if I make total more than $20 from this video, I will get to Woeful Studies. So, now here I am, 3 minutes and 54 seconds in. That's how long it's going to take for me to actually talk about the album. So what I want to do is I want to sort of break this album into sort of 3 different components. The music, the flow, and the words. Okay, just because I have interesting thoughts about all of them. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I'm fascinated by this movement of drumless hip-hop, drumless rap music. You will probably have noted that I was taken aback by Kanye's lack of drums in Donda, and that's what got me to start thinking about it. Now, of course, that's like very late in the development of drumless hip-hop. It turns out I was listening to drumless hip-hop while it was being invented, and I wasn't paying attention. So I want to talk some things about the idea of drumless hip-hop. Like the problems of drumless hip-hop, the joys of it, because I think Ka's albums are some of the best examples of how it can be and how it can make you feel. The hardest thing about it for me as a hip-hop historian is that it's the death of hip hop. I mean, hip hop was basically created when Kool Herc decided to stop listening to disco and went to listen to funk, and then he figured out the breaks, and the breaks were always based on drums. Grandmaster Flash and Grand Wizard Theodore and all those guys were just searching around trying to find the best breaks. They were trying to find Apache, you know. They were trying to find things that were good drums. Like, that was the basis of all of hip hop, was finding a good bass drum. So what happened? Not a bass drum, a good drum beat. So what happened? Well, money killed hip hop. Go on Bandcamp, look up Trauma Loops. Someone made a guy named Marcus Aurelius with Mob Royale made a little song based on me saying money killed hip hop. Trauma Loops. It's a good song. But money did kill drums in hip hop. It did. And I'm going to explain how. I'm going to explain how with this abomination. Now, the album's not Abomination. I Need a Haircut by Biz Markie. Top 50 hip hop album of all time. Absolute awesome album. It's this abomination right here. See how it says collector's edition, special price? Do you know why this is a collector's edition? Because the track listing is missing a song. Now, I also have the original non-collector's edition, which I bought back in the 90s. And if you look very carefully, you will see that song number 12 over here is Alone Again, and song number 12 over here is On and On. So Gilbert O'Sullivan, the person who wrote the original song Alone Again, sued Biz Markie. This was not the first, but really the most significant landmark case where copyright started to come into hip-hop. How did money kill hip-hop? Well, once copyright holders started realizing there was money, once the lawyers got involved, once the hedge fund managers saw profit, once the artists smelled blood, that was it. So once sampling became prohibitive, and these are theories, by the way. I could be wrong on this. Please tell me if you know more than I do. Okay, I'm just kind of theory crafting here. Jesus, that means something. I'm not theory crafting. I'm creating a theory. So I think that was it. I think once that happened, there was like a deadline, because the thing that makes hip hop so amazing is that you don't have to be musically trained to be a good hip hop musician. Some people think that makes it bad. I think that makes it good. Not everyone has equal access to learning how to be a musician, but everyone does have equal human genius that is born within us, granted to us by the Creator, as I would say, or granted to us by chance, as you might say. So once we could no longer take samples, especially drum beat samples, I think it was inevitable we had reached this point. I think if you listen to mainstream hip hop, all the drum beats are these trap drum beats, which are not very interesting, and they don't take a lot of skill to create. And they're sort of like the rhythms of hip hop have become a little bit simpler in that way. So it makes sense that at the same time that we have this move of anti-drums in pop hip-hop music, underground hip-hop music has anti-drums in a different way, which is just finding beats, even finding samples, but just making sure that they don't have a solid drum beat, a break to push it forward. So it's ironic because basically the realest of the truest of the most real hip-hop that's being made right now, most of it's being made without drums, which is directly against the origin of the art. And I also posted on my YouTube comments, if anyone can help me, I'm trying to trace the history of drumless hip-hop. And this is what my auditors have told me. So if you have more thoughts on this, please tell me. As far as I know, there isn't any definitive explanation of how this all came to be. But maybe there is. Maybe a video like this already exists. Excuse me. I'm clinking my mug. I also don't edit my videos to take out clinkings of mugs. So Jacob Alamo points out that E.T. by Outkast was the first beat that he could think of that was drumless, which was interesting, and I listened to that song. I listened to that song when it came out. I didn't notice it didn't have drums. And then Mike Selling says something interesting, because quite often RZA and the Wu-Tang Clan are credited as being the first drumless people. Like, I was reading some older threads, and they say, Hollow Bones off the W is like the most, is the innovation of the drumless sound. But like, there's drums on that song. So I don't know why people are saying that. This is what my auditor Mike Selling said. Wu-Tang is the genesis of the drumless beat style. The muted drums on 36-chambered ushered a minimalistic yet rugged sound to the boom bap that deeply influenced, if not inspired, the drumless movement. RZA and the Wu elements continue to experiment with the sound well into the 2000s. Rock Marciano is a Wu baby, but definitely an original voice. So basically, there's this idea that it really started with RZA de-emphasizing the drums and then being picked up by Rock Marciano. As another viewer, Marcus said, Rock Marciano was definitely not the first, but he did heavy position in Trailblazing. There's a little back and forth about which album started it, probably Reloaded. So, and then other figures as well, like are mentioned, like Alchemist working a lot without drums, and Jay Electronica working a lot without drums. So we basically, though, I think I have a working hypothesis here, which is that based on what people have been helping me work through, RZA de-emphasized the drums, and then Rock Marciano popularized it in the underground, and now I think Kanye is bringing it to the mainstream. You listen to Mr. Morale as well. There's, I think that's what's happening. And the sum effect of this drumless sound, it's not for everybody. Like I don't think everybody can have a drumless beat and sound good. I think in particular, like with Rock Marciano and with Ka, there's a kind of smoky coolness feeling, a certain atmosphere, a certain relaxed feeling. Which leads into my next thing about Ka, and that's his flow. So I've been trying to figure out, who does his flow remind me of? Because it doesn't remind me that much of a rapper. I realized it's Robert De Niro, but not Robert De Niro overboard. Not Robert De Niro in The Untouchables, not Robert De Niro in The Irishman. I'm talking calm De Niro. I'm talking Godfather 2, Casino, like whispering. Like menacing, but filled with wisdom, often kind of taking pauses to breathe through his nose before he says the next line. That kind of like super cool, calm, laconic, but yet totally engaged, totally masterful presence. Like that's what Robert De Niro can do. You compare that to Pacino. I think most rappers are a lot more like Pacino in Scarface, kind of like yelling and being cool and kind of mugging and doing all this. Whereas Ka, I don't know. What do you think about that idea? Ka as good De Niro. I think it's an interesting idea. And then we get to the thematics of the album. Now, the last album I reviewed of his, I talked about how he's the richest man in rap. And by that I mean that he lives a good life, and even though he doesn't have the most money, he knows how to appreciate what he has. That appreciation is the key to happiness, and he very clearly seems to appreciate his life. This album, and for all I know, the other album as well, but I haven't got $20 off this video yet, so make sure you watch to the end, okay? Even if you're bored as hell of what I'm saying, just watch to the end. That way I get all them monies. It's about poverty. This is about where he came from. It's about the misery that he came from, as he says, coming from last place, turning scars into bars. And the thing is that he's not the first rapper to rap about poverty. There's a sadness and a resignation in the way that he's rapping about it. It's not so much like we made it, but like, did we make it? Like, it's clear that he's made it. He has a full-time job as a fireman, and he makes, I assume, a good living off of his music as well. But does the we, meaning other African American people who are born into cyclical trauma, inherited poverty, emotional distance, like, did we make it? Not me, I'm not part of the we. But did they make it, or did he make it? I think that's the point. I think that's why he's really steeping us, even with the just the dark image on the front of a torn down classroom in black and white, and just even the name Languish Arts. Like, you really get the sense of just decay, that someone who's born into decay. that like that it's the first day of school and they open up the door and you walk in and it's that room on the cover of the album with like a broken down desk. So, let me give you an example of what this album's all about. For every album I review, I do a stamp. That's an example song. And the thing is, I want to give you a link of where you can listen to it. But hey, Brownsville Ka doesn't have a link to my favorite song, Last Place. The only way to hear that song is to buy the album. So, what's the one song he has up on his YouTube channel? Ascension. You can listen to it up there. Just click on this Bird of Paradise. If you have a bird of paradise in your house and you don't live in like a tropical area, it just doesn't have the flower. We'll be talking more about flowers in a second. So check out the song Ascension and the video. Drumless. His beats just aren't drumless. They almost feel like anti-drums, you know? These strings are just, they're bowed strings, but played staccato, which creates a tension, right? It's almost like a Bernard Herrmann score, you know, like the guy who did Psycho, you know, has that kind of, but it's also rhythmic. There's this weird sound in the background that might be horns. The chorus, which is a very simple chorus of a couple lines being said, is indicated just by the fact that at a certain point, the goes down, and then at the very end of the chorus there's a single guitar note that bends, and then through the second verse we'll have that kind of playing through. And that's the thing that he does a lot. He has these very simple minimalistic drumless beats, and then through like halfway through the first verse or at the very end of the first chorus he'll add some extra element. Now, lyrically, the whole thing is set up by someone speaking. I don't know who's speaking. It's very clearly a black American who's speaking here, who sort of talks about the difference between his comforting mother and his cold and distant father, which is going to be a theme throughout this entire song, and actually probably throughout the entire album. It's that cycle of poverty, you know, saying that essentially he felt warmth from his mother, but just nothing from his father. As a very warm father, myself, I can tell you, you have to work at it. If you want to be an emotionally warm father, society does not prepare you for being a warm father. Many people in your family maybe haven't prepared you for it. Like, it's great. It is a true joy to be a warm and caring and nurturing father, an emotionally available father. But you got to work for it. And most, 99% of fathers don't do it. So anyways, that's the intro here. And he starts right off, a vet of unpleasant and misery. So just already talking about being like a veteran of misery. Jobless, didn't digest what they fed us in history. This is another theme that what is being taught is not correct, right? That the version of history that we are being taught is not correct. As things develop, I felt I had to curse first. At first I felt I had to curse, but I was bad at cursing. So he mentions a couple times on the album that like he doesn't swear, which is great. My daughter is too young. My baby daughter is too young, so I listen to all sorts of hip hop with her. But at a certain point, I'll have to not listen to stuff with swear words and with the N word because I don't want her bringing that into preschool. So I'm psyched to have clean rap albums. And then we get to this chorus. Every mention is for hood ascension. I may not be a good man, but I got good intentions. There's so much here. So he's talking about hood ascension, like the ascension of people from the ghetto, from the hood, which is a big theme, from poverty, ascension from poverty. But then there's this line, I may not be a good man, but I have good intentions. It's really weird, because usually if people tell you that they are a good person, they're not a good person. Okay? Like the kind of people who say I'm a good person are people who are justifying their bad actions. Okay? Like, good people don't spend time thinking about whether or not they're good people because they're just good people. You understand what I'm saying? Like you find people who are not good talking a lot about how they think every day, how can they be a good person? And I go to bed every night, I think how to be a good person. Like, that's actually sort of a path to evil. So the fact that I'm getting philosophical, that he couches it with, I may not be a good man. That may is doing a lot of work, okay? May not be. It's expressing doubt, okay? It's introducing a subjunctive clause here. May not be, language arts, may not be a good man. So he's admitting fault. And this album, a lot of this album seems to be, atoning for past sins and trying to deal with the fact that poverty made him do things which he now regrets, but got good intentions. So this is a fascinatingly ambiguous line, because people often justify being a bad person by saying they have good intentions. But to me, that's not what he's doing here. Like, I think he's just expressing his frustrations about not knowing if he is being a good man, and that he's working hard, particularly to overcome this coldness that he inherited. Then we get to this masterful second verse, which I got the whole verse right there. And if you think it's easy to find his lyrics, it's not. Some of the lyrics are ingenious, but they're incomplete. You can put captions on the videos when you rip something up to YouTube, but the captions aren't even clear because he doesn't care that much if you understand what he's saying. He has such a low delivery. Anyways, I talk to you like an old uncle, that's my nuance. Beautiful idea, old uncle. He's positioning himself in that place of a wise older male figure. Got killed, couldn't build with my uncles, just my 2 aunts. So he's talking about his uncles being killed. Again, the trauma and cyclical violence in the inner city in America. So his uncles got killed, couldn't build, just my 2 aunts. Already rhyming nuance and 2 aunts is just awesome. That's nuance, 2 aunts. Say it at home. 3, 2, 1. Nuance and 2 aunts. It's just great. When I moved from round the way, last day I had true calm. As more I understood my posture, till I'm posthumous, till little me's thinking critically, I got no accomplishments. Descend to dark continents, center spark confidence, correct the sea, speak of split-second deeds, long consequence. If you a deep person keep searching, amass facts. I believe they call him father, 'cause you're supposed to get past that. You know that meme? Of the guys going, oh, and the guys go in the background and they're all going crazy like that? That's this verse. That's this line. I believe they call him father because you're supposed to get past that. So taking the word father, very Germanic word, all of English basically comes from either Germanic or Latin through French roots. Father. Very different from père, Father. So it's playing on the fact that father is like further. Like go further, go farther. I couldn't go farther than that. I couldn't go farther than that. Sounds like a Bostonian. I couldn't go farther than that. But still, I believe they call him father because you're supposed to get past that. You're supposed to go farther than your father. Farther than your father. That's it. My dad watches my videos. He's actually one of my Patreons now. It's quite funny. And it is explicitly one of my goals to build on what he has done and go further than my father. And it is my sincere hope that my children go further than me. Children are smarter. Every generation we get smarter, right? That's just how the world works. And I guarantee you, your kids are smarter than you. If you think your kids aren't smarter than you, you're not paying attention, okay? But what a beautiful line. And he's not just talking about father in terms of success, but this emotional connection, which is bookending this song about the need to connect. You need to go farther than your distant father. Everybody go farther. If never one, run every one like it's the last lap. Just the way he plays with these words, it's so funny because he's just so Robert De Niro, never one, run every one. He's just delivering these lines so cool and whatever, man. But it's such a great line. If never one, run every one like it's the last lap. One, run every one. If never one, run every one like the last lap. So much sonorance there. Handing ends to family and friends, never expending a cash back. So he's talking about giving money to his family. When you dorm with roaches every day as long as the solstice. I said, parents ain't have no bread. I was born in ketosis. So dorm with roaches, sleeping with roaches, every day as long as the solstice. The themes of nature are all over this album as well. Parents ain't have no bread. I was born in ketosis. So ketosis is that state where your body stops, because your body consumes carbohydrates to sustain itself. So some misguided people cut out carbohydrates from their diets. It's called a keto diet. Bread is good. Bread is good. That just official Professor Sky policy. Bread is good. Knock it off. Remember the first time I heard about Atkins? I'm like, nope, more bread. Anyways, life is way too short not to eat bread. Anyways, so your body goes into a state where it starts eating fat instead of eating carbohydrates. But the sense of like having no bread, having no money, born in ketosis, like actually it doesn't seem like he's trying to lose weight. I got a baby up there. I got to tell you, you want that baby to be fat. You want that baby to look at those rolls. You want that baby to be pudgy. You don't want a baby born in ketosis. This is almost the whole album right here. This idea of being born into a state where your body is eating its own fat. The idea of I'm telling you, as a parent with a 1-month-old baby, the idea of the baby losing weight because it's eating its own fat is more repulsive to me than like having sex with my grandparents. Okay? Like I'm picturing both those things right now. You picture both those things right now too. Okay? Just do it. Who cares? It's in your mind. I can tell you, it is so repulsive to be born in ketosis. It's a really strong line. It's really, really strong. And already we got the cockroaches. So we just picture this like skinny baby. Tabulae fubbins. Always precocious. Never quarreled with randoms. Was drawing focus. Since kids, they tried their colors because the only source is corpus. He do what they tried to feed. They deceiving in doses. Again, going back to this concept of the school being a place where you don't learn things for real. Bottom line, not the time for bikinis, bellinis, mimosas. Right? So mimosas and bellinis, these kind of fancy drinks that people have. It's not the time for that. Never want war, but I'm sure for cleaning my toasters, because when the crabs don't go for roe, all I see is ferocious. So it's like, so he's talking about like toasters being a gun. So he doesn't want war, but he keeps his gun metaphorically, I hope, clean. When crabs don't go for roe, all I see is ferocious. When crabs don't eat what is presented to them, they go on each other. It's ferocious. And that's, to a certain extent, what life is like. In the ghetto, crabs in a barrel eating each other. It's also what life is like in a underfunded public college. Everyone ends up eating, anywhere you're underfunded, you're crabs in a barrel. Doesn't matter where you are, okay? Failing company, crabs in a barrel. Poor neighborhood, crabs in a barrel. Failing school, crabs in a barrel. And that's what he's talking about. That's where he is. He's born into ketosis. And then it ends with him, with this quote coming back and saying, to be a man, I had to repress my emotions. So he's explaining, this mythical narrator is explaining, is bookending this whole story with talking about how the connection between emotional distance and manhood. And in the very middle of it, we have him talking about having to go farther than your father. Damn, I like Ka. It's funny because everyone said I was going to love Ka, and the first couple times I listened, I'm like, I don't get it. I want drums. He's just mumbling. But then I sit here with this. I love it. The video, which you've hopefully seen too, it's just funny. He directs his own video. It's all in black and white. Black and white. It's all in black and white. It's just him just walking around Brooklyn being kind of hot. Trying to cool off. He's not lip syncing. Dude's too cool for lip syncing. Just kind of follow him around. Okay, now we get to the rest of the album. Damn it. Smash the like bucket. I keep forgetting. Smash the like bucket and subscribe. If you smash the like bucket actually and subscribe and comment, it's more likely that this video will be put in other people's feeds. If more people watch it, I'm closer to that 5,000 views, which will get me to review the next album. You can see why I can't review both of them, right? I mean, I'm looking at the timer right now. I'm at the 30-minute mark, and I'm through one song. I am going to go through the rest of the album a little bit quicker here, with the first track, Full Cobra. Cool kind of guitar sound. Lots of guitar here. The chorus kind of builds up the sounds with a string for chorus and a little bit of bass, but again, just very relaxed all the way through. The music's very relaxed. The sound of a teacher greeting a sort of like trying to get a class engaged. Good morning. I can't hear you. Good morning. This is the first time where he makes reference to making clean raps. I do this clean rap. It's true. It ain't trap. I bring escape. So that's the idea, that it's sort of a liberation rap, because he's trying to talk about ascension. He's trying to talk about getting out, when people who are rapping about the trap are sort of talking about staying in. He has another funny line where he says, if I don't move you, just move on. Like, he directly addresses me a year ago listening to this, just saying, it's all right, you don't like my music, whatever. Dude, he doesn't care. You think Ka cares what you think about his music? He's a firefighter, you know? He's worried about backdraft and the fact that Dalmatians are mean little sons of bitches. Those dogs are not good dogs. Firemen they backed a bad dog, black and white. I did know one good Dalmatian once, but in general they're bad tempered. I just lost a lot of viewers, didn't I? My Dalmatian viewers. Feel free to post comments if you want to defend Dalmatians. But I love this idea that he just says straight up, if I don't move you, move on. He also refers to himself as Aristotle's Plato. I am Plato's Socrates. He repeats this twice. He's very clearly proud of himself. The idea that he is a teacher. He is the teacher of the people. He is not just a student. And then we get to this chorus where he talks about hood on my back, full Cobra. And I was trying to think about what this was. And I was like, is this like a reference to like a douchey racing jacket with like a Cobra on the back, like Ryan Gosling in that movie Drive? Baby Driver. Anyways, there's some movie where Ryan Gosling has a Cobra on his back. But no, I think what it is when you put up a hood, it makes it look like you have a Cobra head. So I think that's what he's saying, full Cobra. And also saying this is in reference to the character of Ka from Jungle Book, who is referenced a couple times in this album. Ka's the hypnotizing snake, voiced by Sterling Holloway, who also does the voice for Winnie the Pooh. It's funny, though, because his name, his birth name is Kasim, which is kind of more interesting. Apparently, I did this research. Please tell me if you speak Arabic and this is wrong. It means divided. So Kasim that's a far out thing to name your kid. Divided? My name is Divided? Imagine if your name was Divided. Whew. Next song is Ascension, which I've already covered. After that is No Reservation. Kind of acoustic guitar, the piano, and a whiny synth, a little tinkly piano. It repeats this idea over and over again. It was sinning for dinner with no reservations, none. Like, this is again this theme of like talking about his youth and being more of a bad person, committing crimes. It was far from a time that was refined. All I saw was crude. More of these clever lines. And then he talks a lot about the crack epidemic. And this is the thing. He's old. He's an older rapper. He's older than me. I just turned 45 and I'm old. So I get to call him old too. I think he's 50, based on what I read in one of the comments on YouTube. And probably the importance of that is that he grew up in the absolute center of the somewhat manufactured crack epidemic. Okay, so obviously crack is still an epidemic in a lot of places, but definitely the 80s when it was really washing over the streets and people didn't know how to react. So when he talks about it, it's a little bit different. My Lane, they made it Bane with cocaine. That's raw rocks, a few banking. It's the new blanket with the smallpox. So, America didn't actually intentionally poison the Native Americans with smallpox blankets. It wasn't intentional. Oops. But they did it. Oops. Is the war on drugs a war on African Americans? Or are we going to prosecute it differently and fill up our jails and destroy families while promoting these values and cutting social structures all over the place to make sure it's the only way that anyone can get by? Oops. Here's the smallpox. Damn it. Did we do another smallpox blanket? Ka has perfectly said it. This is a perfect metaphor. It was. It was a smallpox blanket. Corrupt and complicit, that's all cops. That's an exact fact they can't face. Again, it's funny because he's a civil servant, and it's not like police officers and firemen aren't conceived of and very differently, so it's interesting here. The New York Post actually put him on the front page once, attacking him for criticizing the police. Because they just can't figure out, do they love firemen or do they hate firemen? They love firemen. They hate a fireman who is speaking his conscience. Thought the whole patrol was vegan. How they plant base. It's just funny and it's harsh and it's true. So thought the patrol was vegan. They plant base. So like plant-based is like you eat something that's vegan, it's plant-based, but also base like cocaine. So like planting base on people, like actually planting the crack rocks on people's things because you're a corrupt cop and you're trying to arrest people. Plant base, made bonds by touching palms, no handshakes. And then at the very end, we have another disembodied voice coming out of nowhere saying, I don't make any bones about where I'm going to spend eternity, which leads into the next song, Forgive Me, another part of this theme. Seems to be a 12-string guitar sample here, a smoky keyboard. At certain times, he lets the sample... And he's, by the way, up till now, he's produced everything I've talked about right now. He produces basically everything. He just sits there. I guess he goes in, he pets his terrible Dalmatian, he puts out some fires, cleans his fire truck, goes home, and then just makes these beats and does these rhymes. So, and then here, he just talks really about his position, about his youth. Because of where I rest, been assessed to have less potential, talking about the inherent bias against people from where he grew up in Brooklyn, was wild dogs trying to wreck the kennel. In a beautiful image of a kennel filled with wild dogs, like kennels being imprisoned, keeps going here. And then this crazy hook. If I ever pulled a 4 on you and said, gimme, forgive me. He's asking for forgiveness from the people he robbed. Pulled a 4, I assume he means a 44. A gun. It's an awfully big gun for like a stick up. But anyways, and then said, give me, forgive me. He's asking for forgiveness, and I think it's real. I think he's really trying to come to terms. This album seems to be really putting forth this thing. Like, I was born into ketosis. I was born with nothing, and I was born in a situation where I was given nothing, and it's just terrible. And then in reaction to that, I became a wild dog and became a criminal. And I did things, and forgive me. And now I'm out of that, and now I'm the old uncle, and I'm trying to build something, and I'm trying to develop the skills that were not given to me through society, given to me by my family, given to me by my father, etc. It's like it's a process of growing, and we're in it with him. You like the way I talk, but I'm a better listener. I live in these bars, may be hard to find a better prisoner. So here he's taking the bars as in like the verses that he rhymes and creating those as a bars. And the idea of a rap artist being a good listener, I believe it. That's another thing that De Niro does well, right? De Niro is maybe the best actor at listening. His little reactions, I can't even do it. I got a little mole. Like no one does a better job of listening than Robert De Niro. Am I pushing that idea too hard? Tell me in the comments. Next song is called If Not True. Weird amount of instrumentation and like horns to start. And then there's an actual beat, like a double hi-hat in this repeating piano pattern. At times accentuated more instruments. You can even hear the snake, Ka, voiced by Winnie the Pooh, saying, you can believe me. And he even starts like singing a hook. If it ain't true, it ain't for me. And then there's almost later like this like kind of loud singing soul voice. It's the essay or the Hefe is a line that he says, which is funny, two different Spanish words, sort of like, either the boss or just like the person on the street. I'm either vitamin D deficient or damn well another summer lost. More of these themes. There's so many themes about the sun. A lot of themes of like sun and the health of the sun. Like the sun represents health and growth. Sunny times represent health and growth. And instead, he's in this little roach-infested place. You can hear my washer going off. I have to move the washer into the dryer after this video. Next song is called Unindulged, produced by Animos, one of the two songs not produced by Ka. More developed, kind of a real drum beat, high trilling saxophone, and a guest appearance too by a guy named Chuck Strangers. Good flow, complements nicely with Ka. Ka jumps right in at some point, says, "Can't reach these heights, I broke the ladder." Kind of funny. Then we get in the song Touche. So I think a lot about how to listen to music. And, there's like many, like when I listen to an album, I live with it. So mostly I listen to it on the headphones while I'm at the gym, which is why I had to go through that whole thing of putting the movie on iMovie and then uploading it to a private channel on YouTube, getting copyright struck on a private video. Thanks, YouTube. So I had to do that. And then I come home and I can listen to it in my car, my private YouTube video in the car and Bluetooth. That's a different kind of listening. And then I come home and there's what I call the kitchen test. So we have like a Bluetooth speaker in the kitchen and I play it while I'm hanging around with my family. This morning I cooked up some Kenji Lopez pancakes. I had my baby on the baby Bjorn. It was a nice time. I was cooking. And I'm not sure that Ka passes the kitchen test because his music is so atmospheric, because you really have to be focused in on it. I'm not sure how it works as not necessarily background music, but soundtrack music. Background music sounds insulting. I mean like communal soundtrack. Some music can be a communal soundtrack. Everybody get together, listen, all fun. That's not really this. And this song the most, because it's this bizarre beat with these flutes, like going to a solo, like a free jazz guitar, and then like this feedback. Whole thing's like, beep, and it's a shame because these are some of the best lyrics. Through all my bars, wear my scars as mementos. So much of this album is about presenting scars as work. Just for fun. I looked up the etymology, which is the word origin, the etymology of the word memento. It turns out memento is an imperative form. It is an order. It means remember. So it's not just a memory. It is remember. You must remember. That's what memento means. It comes from a psalm. Funny, isn't it? Memento is an order. And this album is about the duty of remembering his youth and his upbringing. Memento. Tired of black kids bending over backwards, leaning limbos, got a lot of layers. That's how I made it through the winter in these thin clothes. Never would have made it to June. I've been talking about the sun. I've been talking about sunlight. And that's what he's talking about here. He's talking about making it through the spiritual winter with these thin clothes and the physical winter with these thin clothes. Okay, so it's a spiritual and a physical problem that he's confronting here. I mean, those thin clothes never would have made it to June. Making it to June, thematically, that's making it to summer, making it to when it's warm. When you grow up in Western New York, when you grow up in Brooklyn, New York, the winter's a real deal. The spring is a real deal. This album is filled with images of spring and flowers and May, and it's the sense that he barely makes it through to the summer. He even says, I can't wait for our for our grandkids' kids to be great, I think is the line. And here he's sort of talking about this difficulty of generational trauma and generational pravda, the generational wealth, the creation of generational wealth, and the need, not just that, but generational opportunity, because that's really the problem. Sorry, a bee just appeared in my room. It scared the hell out of me. Oh, it's a stink bug. I don't have roaches. I have stink bugs. I'm not worried about that. That it's really generational opportunity because, slaves had no opportunities. Reconstruction, virtually no opportunities. Jim Crow, virtually no opportunities. Post-civil rights, some opportunities, but still heavily reduced to these days. It's just generation after generation after generation, whereas the opposite, you have my family line, generation after generation after generation, opportunity. You always want your kids to have a better life than the life you had. And that's what he's wanting for, but the structures in place make it harder for, as he says, black kids to do the limbo. Next song is called Still Holding, produced by DJ Preservation. Very catchy song. Like the chorus is sung, still holding. A female voice is singing along here. Still holding. Like I actually have it stuck in my head. A beautiful line here. Truth be told, a beautiful soul over a handsome face. Why not both? Although he does say he doesn't like using a doctor. He chews the Peruvian maca root. There is a whole problem in the African American community, where doctors have mistreated the African American community. They don't take their pain as seriously. They are treated worse. So that makes sense. But at the same time, we would like equality of care. Makarud is not. I mean, if you're 50 years old, if you're watching this, you gotta go to doctors. If you find a bad doctor, move on. But you gotta go to a doctor. Makarud is not gonna give you a colonoscopy. And hey, you need a colonoscopy. You're our age. You gotta do it. Get hypnotized. Do it. Family Color is the second to last song. Guitar and bass, like the guitar is like this singly strummed note. Never scared for broke, I was already poor. Address each cut with the openness of a wound. Such great wordplay here. Address each cut, like each song, with the openness of a wound. Like an open wound. Like, do you see what he's doing here? Like, and the thing is, I've missed a lot of lines on this album, by the way. He has this whole thing about sour grapes and stuff. I mean, he has so many great lines on here, but just let's take a second here with this one. Address each cut, each song with the openness. So he wants openness. You need openness to be a good artist. You can't be closed off. You have to be open to innovation, open to emotional honesty, open to all that. So he has all the openness. So he's addressing each cut with the openness of a wound, because he constantly talks about how it's the scars that made his art. It's the scars that created him. So each cut, which is a cut, double entendre, openness of the wound. The openness is a double entendre, but the wound isn't. The wound is a single meaning, a single entendre, which means to hear in French, by the way. Not to listen, but to hear. You can hear without listening, but you cannot listen without hearing. So it's a double entendre, single entendre of the wound. Beautiful. Talks about no example of being good. Again, that's this very consistent theme about the sort of generational lack of help from up above. Then we get to the final song, the best song on the album, I think, Last Place. It's got a flute. There are some drums in the way back. When you listen to this in the kitchen, you don't hear the drums, but when you listen to it on headphones, you do. It's a single bell ride hit and a little drum fill. And I think a drum fill is like way in the other room, underwater. The drum fill that you hear is a drummer who's in a tank of water 4 floors underneath the earth. That's how loud the drummer sounds. Again, we sort of just get into this whole sort of, like, even when there are drums, there aren't drums. Like, it's not really a drum beat. It's more of just like incidental drum noises. And this is where I came up with the Robert De Niro theory, because this is his most De Niro rapping. This is the stuff that only suffering makes. This is the sound of last place. Classmates, they only had one pair of pants. They caught a lot of slack. Tired of eating kids' meal. To be big deal, I got a Mac. Beautiful set of lines there. The stuff that suffering makes. Again, like, he uses the word stuff, which is a bad word. Stuff. I can tell you, I've graded papers where my students actually use the word stuff. It's like, anytime you use the word stuff, it means you have something that you're not describing well. But not here, because he's doing it for the sonorants with suffering, stuff, suffering. This is sorry, my nose got itchy. Now I'm thinking about that stink bug. This is the stuff that suffering makes. Suffering makes. The sound of last place. The sound of last place. Think about DJ Khaled, All we do is win. It's another one. You think about just the triumph of being in first place and we're number one. This is an album about being born in last place. Okay? Being born in the current Red Sox standing. In the standings. Rough year for the Red Sox. Born in last place. Born in last place, And then staying in last place. Classmates, they only had one pair of pants that caught a lot of slack. I talk a lot about my wife, who grew up in what was then Yugoslavia, and her family only had one pair of pants, and she didn't know any different, But it's fascinating because, a lot of people in America right now only have one pair of pants. That's like a reality. Caught a lot of slack, and if you only have one pair of pants in America, capitalist society, you'll be made fun of. Like, haha, you only have one pair of pants. When I grew up, my family didn't want for money, but I definitely wore the same clothes over and over again. And when I did, I was called poor. I was made fun of. So like imagine being born in last place, being born with nothing, being born in ketosis, and you only have one pair of pants, and you're catching a lot of slack. Tired of eating kids' meals to be big deal. I got a Mac. So, playing around with kids' meals and playing around with the word Big Mac. Like when he said tired of kids' meals, right, you think I ate a Big Mac, but actually Mac being a Mac 10 machine gun. To be a big deal, I got a Mac. Going back to the theme of becoming a criminal, committing the acts for which he has to demand forgiveness in order to grow. And then he talks about his own music. I'm not dense, I know, trying to make sense, don't make dollars. He's talking about the difficulty of his music. It's more profitable to be gibberishy, to be crime-filled. But he is going to make sense. Trying to make sense doesn't make dollars stack. So that's double entendre of sense and sense, dollars stack. But I insist like a dying wish. So here he's talking about his need to have rap music that has content, has emotional content and meaning. Like a dying wish, the best gift you can give a child is fact. So he's doing this. Wu-Tang is for the children, but is it? This is for the children. This is for the kids. Give your child is a fact. Again, this chorus on last place. And then this next verse, this is what I'm talking about, full De Niro. Especially, like, listen to this verse and listen to his nose control, how he allows himself to just sort of, in between lines, just another scar of mine trying to generate a dinner plate. So, a scar generating a dinner plate. So he's trying to eat. He's using his scars to generate a dinner plate. Call line with a hard time on the interstate, adapt, don't assimilate. He's trying to adapt, but not assimilate. So don't adapt into this wicked system. Don't assimilate into it, but adapt to it. Difficult. He makes all these smarty pants lines like a frontal lobe in the back of my mind. The novelty of wearing poverty is a badge of honor. The astute listen and hear a soup kitchen and a bread line. So like that's what you hear in his music. Work we put in when he should have been at bedtime. Never reached some sour grapes, still sad wine. So there's the sour grapes. He talks about grapes a couple times on this album. This real theme of like sour grapes, like opportunity. Like the fox wants the grapes and doesn't reach them, but it's the opportunity in this case. So it's sad wine that he's drinking. He's not even trying to get these sad grapes. And that ends with someone saying no one's rich in the ghetto because if they're rich, they'd move out, which is another one of these themes. So there it is. Languish Arts by Kasim, whatever his last name is. It's great. It really does show a lot of the potential that rap music has to innovate and to speak on something important. It's conscious rap, but it doesn't feel preachy. It feels to me, as somebody who did not grow up in poverty. Okay, I'm a professor, right? I used to get to teach a lot of literature. I don't get to teach much literature anymore. But part of the thing that you lose when you stop reading books is you don't get as much empathy. You don't feel with somebody. Because if you're watching a movie, you don't put yourself in the mind of the character. But in a book, you can describe how someone is feeling, how they're living. That's part of the power to empathize. Music at its best can get you to empathize. And when I'm listening to this album, even though I did not grow up in this situation, I feel that sense of empathy. I feel that sense of understanding. And I know, not understanding. I feel empathy. It's not understanding because you can't understand other people's misery. All you can do is believe it when they tell you about it and try to empathize. Try to suffer with them. Feel that compassion. And that's the way I feel. And I'm never going to get the damn image of being born into ketosis out of my head. It's terrible. Okay. Well then, until next time, well, who knows? Maybe this video is going to take off. Oh, but my Patreons. I almost forgot my Patreons. These are my Patreons. They give me money too to buy music and stuff. Got some new folks on there. Got my dad. See, Pa, he's down there. Rhymes with Ka. Andrew Ambrose Lee, host of the listen to that podcast. I talked about Kanye on for a while. Life of Pablo, that was fun. Samir, still new guy on there. So yeah, you want to join up? Help me out? Give me the monies? Why not? All right, I'm going to go switch over the laundry. There's the camera.